Good morning. Our opening hymn, please join me for our opening hymn, which is number 361 in the teal hymnal, number 361, just so that. Enter, rejoice, and come in. I don't know, this one. Gray hymnal, I guess.
And since we all know this one so well, I'll just do the last two bars as intro and do all five verses.
Now, this is definitely the grayer of the hymnals. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Oxford. My name is James Belker. I am your service leader and I guess your Sunday services coordinator or trustee. And whether you are a longtime member or a first-time visitor, we welcome you here. Come with an open mind, a loving heart, and willing hands. You are welcome here no matter your age, your size, the color of your hair, or your eyes. Come, whatever your abilities, and whomever you love. We come together for worship, which for us as Unitarian Universalists is defined as giving honor, reverence, and regard to something. In our congregation, worship does not refer to adoration, but more often to reverence and gratitude for the wonder of nature and being. Our worship services are delightfully multi-generational with all ages, abilities, and learning styles in mind as the Sunday services team plans our time together. Upholding our shared values, we come together today especially to celebrate our interdependence and honor the spirit of generosity, all of which is centered in love. It is good to be together today in this congregation, to wake today to compassion and conscience as we work together towards a planet transformed by our care. We are especially excited to have in the pulpit today Dr. Graham Pitts, who teaches environmental studies and Middle East history at the University of Mississippi. Originally from North Carolina, he followed a venerable Quaker tradition of relocating to eastern Indiana, where he attended Earlham College and began a career devoted to teaching about the Middle East. He has lived in Egypt, Lebanon, Palestine, and Syria. And it is a testament to how small the world is, or perhaps to some spark of serendipity, that Graham and I met coincidentally here in Oxford at the community market, despite having many overlapping friends and apparently continuously just missing each other while living in the Middle East and DC. And now for our announcements. Thank you. What do we have? The annual UUCO fundraiser silent auction. Andy and Michelle are heading up the silent auction committee, but are still, I believe, looking for 1 or 2 people to help out with the planning and execution. Anybody who's thinking about how they might be able to contribute to the congregation, this is a really great way. It's a really big part of our fundraising efforts and requires a fair amount of logistical planning. Andy and Michelle are great and great logistical planners, but a little bit more brain muscle would help them there. The adult series of OWL. Join us for a special adult series of the award-winning program Our Whole Lives, using values, communication skills, and spirituality as starting points. This program explores sexuality issues for adults of all ages. You may attend any and all sessions, which are each a standalone and run about 2 to 4 hours on the fourth Sunday of the month, August to November, but please RSVP. Remember, note about Reverend Sarah's socials and pastoral care. Her socials are on hiatus until December, but she's available for your pastoral needs anytime. Please reach out if you need to her email. And then Soul Matters is on hiatus until January. RE registration. Families interested in participating in RE this year are encouraged to register their children or youth prior to the start of programming. I think you should talk to Wendy about that. And as always, this says congregation input for 2025. We're more or less scheduled for most of 2025, but the Sunday Service Committee welcomes any input on things you'd like to see in programming for more for 2026 at this point. You can see, 2 community events I'm going to highlight. The longest table, that happened. Okay. Well, this didn't happen. The spiritual protest and call to action is October 18th, 11 to 1, on the square to show solidarity with Black churches and faith leaders in Mississippi in light of recent anti-DEI initiatives. Our own Reverend Sarah is going to be one of the faith leaders delivering a prayer at that event. I think there should be a flyer on the bulletin board in the entryway, and you can also talk to Reverend Sarah if you want more information. There's a couple more things, mostly boilerplate in here. You can always check your insert for the full announcements. And then I've got a couple more. From Ann Philippi today, from 12 to 6, there is a community garage sale at Circle and Square. Good stuff for sale. Matt Warren, one of UUCO's first members, will have a booth. That's cool. Sue Fino, there is a special election for commissioner in Oxford District 12. You may be able to vote absentee ballot starting now. You can talk to Sue about that for further information. And from Michelle Harvey, the October hospitality schedule is now posted on the bulletin board. So check that, especially if you're involved in hospitality. Make sure you know what days you're up for. And if you'd like to join the hospitality committee, talk to Michelle about that. I think that is it. We come to religious community from many paths and with diverse needs. If you have come here seeking comfort, may your pain be soothed. If you have come here looking for answers, may you find new questions. If you have come here seeking purpose, may your call be awakened. And if you have come here hoping to build a new way, may the path be open for you. In the spirit of fellowship that is the bedrock of this community, now let us take a moment to greet our neighbors. You can turn to your left or right or lean back if you have to say hello to one of your fellow congregations for a moment. And with the healing love of our community sparking among us, let us light the sacred symbol of our faith, our flaming chalice. And I hope, so I've done this one a couple of times, this chalice lighting, and I was looking in the spirit of the sermon, the message today, looking for things kind of related to Abrahamic faiths and Islam. And there's not a lot on the worship web, which is the portal to find different service elements. So there's a couple, and they're mostly written by Sumar al-Bayati, who's a UU Muslim of Iraqi descent. And while we are a faith of many hyphens, there's not a lot of UU Muslims. But I guess that makes us all the more lucky that Ms. Bayati writes so eloquently. Verily, with hardship comes ease. This is from the Quran, Surah Ash-Shara. Lighting this chalice, well, the previous quote was, lighting this chalice may feel difficult today. This symbol of justice, known to be a light of hope for the marginalized, a message of sanctuary for the depressed, a flame that feels lost or somehow diminished. How do we rekindle this fire of compassion? And how do we rekindle this fire of mercy? A famous verse within the Quran tells us that with hardship comes ease. With hardship comes ease. We welcome the ease, O God of justice. We welcome the ease, O Spirit of love. We welcome the ease and rekindle this flame.
You got a flame. Love it both out.
From our tears, our quiet suffering.
You still got a flame.
Where?
In the dish.
That one's okay. We welcome the ease and rekindle this flame on behalf of those who feel abandoned and betrayed. We welcome the ease and rekindle this flame for all of those children who ask, why can we not live in peace as other children do? May lighting this chalice today, no matter how difficult it may feel, help us to rekindle compassion and mercy within the deep crevices of our hearts, so that we can, once again, bring justice and hope to a world struggling to find its humanity and struggling to find its soul. Our next hymn is not in either of the gray or tealish hymnals. It is on an insert that you should have found on your seat. It is called Didn't My Lord Deliver Daniel? And appropriately, I think Dan Mattern is going to help us with this one.
Deliver me, yes. So Tycho's going to play the chorus and the verse through for us, and then we'll start in on the chorus. In the insert, verse number 3 has 5 lines, so just when you get to the wind blows east, that's the first line of the fourth verse. So don't sing that in the third verse. Wait for the fourth verse. So there's one insert that has the tune and the first verse, and then there's an insert with all the verses, just the lyrics on it. So please stand as you're willing or able.
And there's one other thing you'll notice at the end of the second and the fourth lines where it says fide, DCL, fide. There's a rest there. Pretend that rest doesn't exist. Because if it exists, then it becomes a 5/4 measure and it gets all awkward. Basically, you'll hear instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, blah, blah, blah. All right, well, here we go.
The offering we take each Sunday is an opportunity to recommit to this place and to these people. It is much a ritual as singing together, lighting our chalice, or reciting our congregational blessing. It is a reminder of that form of love we call generosity. It is how we show that we believe that it is important to worship together, to help our community, and to say yes to the values of our faith. As you probably know, every week we share our plate 50-50 with a local organization. For this month, the month of October, we are splitting the plate with El Pueblo. And a blurb about El Pueblo. Since 2007, El Pueblo has been a provider of professional, low-cost, humanitarian, and family-based immigration legal services to Mississippi communities, and has had a significant presence in the forest community since 2019 after ICE raids happened. El Pueblo works with and for low-income immigrants across Mississippi, and I think 2 other states, but definitely Mississippi, to provide services that empower immigrants, especially victims of violence, to live lives of dignity and hope. And if you're interested more, there's a link to their website here. This morning's offering will now be gratefully accepted. I forgot to say, if you have any griefs, gratitudes, or growths, you could drop them in the bucket. So if you didn't drop it in the bucket, you can now. Thank you, Dan. Now, let us enter into the ritual like the one before, to share what is on our hearts and lay it at the altar of community and spirit. Using a pebble dropped into a bowl of water to symbolize the ripple effect of the events of our lives upon the larger community, we will now share the grief, gratitude, and moments of growth that have touched our lives since we were last together. Our first pebble is one of gratitude for our visitors and friends and our opportunity to gather here today. We have a couple other written ones. From Chad and Arlissa. UU family, please forgive our absence lately. Arlissa's dad has been at UMMC Jackson with health problems. Please send good thoughts his way. From Chad and Arlissa. From Mary Keha, concerned, thank you for continuing positive intentions for Michael and Betsy Leon. Michael has a heart catheterization on October 15th. Also for Marge Holland, who has tests Wednesday on her heart before a probable surgery later. And also, I guess this was an announcement, but I didn't see it. Friends of the Forest meets today at Diane Ferguson's house if you are interested in Oxford's trees. Lastly, Mary is concerned that in international waters are being boats on international waters are being blown up without due process of law. A gratitude from Joanne Gabrowinowicz.
Not bad.
What?
Not bad. Not bad.
Thank you. A gratitude for the birth of a beautiful little girl last night, a new daughter of our former student in Beijing.
Oh, wow.
Gratitude from around the And then a gratitude and growth from Glenn. This is a tough one for me. Next week, Glenn will be embarking on a new journey, a job in South Carolina. So congrats on that. She says, thank you all so much for being such a welcoming community. I'm glad to have known you, and parting is a bittersweet one. Yes, it is. You have been, this is just getting used to having you doing the office administrator gig, and you're great at it. So I think we had a request to do a little song.
I have one more.
Oh, okay.
It's a joy
Okay.
for this person that's getting married next week.
Oh, thank you. You give me a heart attack. It's 2 weeks.
From yesterday.
2 weeks from yesterday. Yeah.
Tell us what the situation is, what, getting married? What?
As far as I know, yeah.
Well, what's the occasion?
They have to get married in. No, I'm joking.
So for Glenn, we had a request to sing her out with As You Go. So Tycho, most of us should know that. So Tycho, if you can.
Everybody knows the lyrics, right? Sort of.
What are the As You Go, As You Go?
As you go.
Thank you all. So sweet. Oh my God.
And finally, we drop a pebble into the water for all the grief, gratitude, and growth moments that remain unspoken. All that we hold in our hearts for ourselves, for each other, and for the world is held in this community by a love that is limitless. Amen and blessed be. We'll now do our seated meditation hymn, which is number 123 in your gray hymnal, Spirit of Life, twice.
I'll just do the last 2 bars as intro. It's not gonna be nothing.
Tycho, can you do the last 4 bars?
Yeah.
We now have 2 readings. The first reading is in 2 parts. It's from The 9 Quarters of Jerusalem by Matthew Teller, who's an author I used to read a lot because he wrote the Lonely Planet guides to Jordan and I think a few other countries in the Middle East that I would read and reread when I lived there. These are both from the introduction of the book. Jerusalem shouldn't exist. I mean, there shouldn't be a city there at all. That's hard for us who are not city builders to grasp, but in the era when Jerusalem began, if you were going to build somewhere to live, you wouldn't choose that spot. Its water sources are too remote, down in the steep valleys or far distant. Its hilltop ridges, which aren't the highest around, are threateningly overlooked. Major trade routes pass nowhere near. Everything's wrong, yet here it is. Knowledge does not dispel mystery, writes Nan Shepherd. When the pharaohs cursed Jerusalem in texts written in decades on either side of 1900 BCE, maybe they were cursing Jerusalem. We don't know. But Jerusalem, perhaps named for Shalom, the god of the setting sun, was certainly a place by the time its ruler Abdi-Heba wrote to Pharaoh Akhenaten in the 1300s BCE. Later, around 1000 BCE, in a foundational tradition of Judaism, something special about Jerusalem prompted David, perhaps a ruler of Judah, a region to the south, to seize it and its fortress of Zion, then controlled by the Jebusites. It seems the Jebusites, a nation or just a family, we don't know, and all of Canaan, as the country was then known, may already have venerated Jerusalem as the center of the world. Spiritual energy could have been why they wanted to live there, despite the logistical shortcomings. Either way, when David's son Solomon built the temple on one of Jerusalem's stony summits, he probably incorporated pre-existing forms of Jebusite or Canaanite worship into his new Israelite devotions. A rock at the peak of that summit, enclosed within the temple buildings, became revered in Judaism, named after Judah as the foundation stone, the interface between earth and heaven, source of creation and center of the world, beneath which raged the waters of the flood. It was where God had collected the dust that formed Adam. It was where Abraham had bound his son, believed in Judaism to be Isaac, for sacrifice. The temple was destroyed in 586 BCE, rebuilt and destroyed again in 70 CE. By then, the first Christians knew of Jewish traditions focused on the rock, but for them, the foundational drama of faith in Jerusalem played out 500 meters to the west at a rocky knoll known as Golgotha, and later as Calvary. A kilometer to the east on the Mount of Olives, pilgrims venerated a rock bearing the footprint of Jesus from his ascent to heaven. Jerusalem remained the center of the world in Christianity, but the temple's demolition twice over obviously demonstrated God's displeasure with the Jews. Christ's teachings signaled a transference of understanding and a new beginning for humanity. The first Muslims also knew of Jewish traditions and Christian ones. Jerusalem was to them already a site of cosmic importance. It was where the prophets Abraham, David, Solomon, and Jesus had lived and prayed. It was linked with Mecca by the night journey of the prophet Muhammad. There is not an inch in Jerusalem where a prophet has not prayed or an angel has not stood, said Ibn Abbas, cousin of Muhammad. The foundation stone took on new significance. Now it bore the footprint of Muhammad from his ascent to heaven, when he received God's instruction to pray 5 times a day. Below it gaped the abyss of chaos, source of the rivers of paradise. In Islam, the rock stood as the focus of the chronic site Al-Aqsa, a mosque that some believed had been built by the first human, Adam, and renovated by Solomon. Over and around the rock, Jerusalem's new Muslim rulers designed an architectural evocation of the city's crucial role as the location of the Day of Judgment. A building that was octagonal, like the throne of God, with a golden dome beaming the message of Islam to the world. The esplanade around this new dome of the rock was where the souls of the dead would gather to hear the archangel Israfil blow the trumpets announcing the end of the world. Islam, in its turn, signaled a transference of understanding and a new beginning for humanity. As in the previous traditions, there was always a physical Jerusalem, as well as a moral and spiritual one. An old corrupted message and a new, clear one. So it didn't matter that the city had no river, no strategic value, and no natural resources or commercial wealth. It had God. That's the first part of the reading, and the second excerpt goes like this. Here's a story about walls and the spaces they enclose. When the Jewish temple existed, it was designed as a sequence of concentric courtyards. After Herod's rebuilding, the outermost was named the Court of Gentiles, accessible to all. Next came the Court of the Women, restricted to Jews only. From there, only Jewish men could access the Court of the Israelites. The inner court of the priests held the temple building itself, within which a vestibule led to a holy chamber. At the back of this chamber, the core of the whole complex was an ornately decorated Holy of Holies, a space holding the Ark of the Covenant, a chest out of which God spoke to Moses and which contained the stone tablets of the Ten Commandments. Only one man, the high priest, could enter the Holy of Holies, and then only one day a year, Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. But the ark had disappeared, perhaps during the destruction of Solomon's temple in 586 BCE. By Herod's day, the Holy of Holies had been empty for more than 500 years. There was nothing there. Hold on to that image. To reach the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, 2 gated entrances from public streets open to the parvis, the enclosed courtyard before the church door. From here, worshippers enter the church itself and pass through the building to a central rotunda known as the Anastasis, or Resurrection. Here, beneath a great dome, stands the decorated edicule, a small building within a building at the core of the whole complex. Within the edicule, a vestibule chapel leads through the holiest of spaces, which contain the tomb of Jesus. Since the Son of God triumphed over death by rising on the 3rd day, the tomb is empty. The Haram al-Sharif, or Al-Aqsa Mosque compound, has 10 gates currently in use, which open from surrounding streets to an enclosed esplanade atop the leveled summit of the mountain. Once within this enclosure, worshippers ascend to a second raised platform demarcated by freestanding arcades. Atop this platform rises a glittering decorated dome of the rock. Entering through the doors of this building brings you first to an outer ambulatory, then an inner ambulatory that circles the exposed rock itself, the foundation stone, the interface between earth and heaven, and the point from which Prophet Muhammad ascended to an audience with God. Steps from the inner ambulatory access the holiest space of all, a cave beneath the rock known as the Well of Souls, where the spirits of the dead await Judgment Day. Apart from a niche indicating the direction of prayer, the cave is empty. These 3 spaces, the Holy of Holies, the Tomb of Christ, and to a lesser extent, the Well of Souls, are fundamental to belief and practice in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Jerusalem is a city of walls and gates and stones, accreted in concentric layers. Their encirclement, as Hisham Matar wrote about Siena, does not repel so much as intensify the Jerusalemness within. We pass the walls, we pass through the gates, we touch the stones. We navigate our path from the outer courtyards and of our everyday world into the inner courtyards of what is most holy, most Jerusalem. Once we have done enough to gain access, once every barrier has dissolved and every gate has fallen open, we arrive emotional, awestruck, in a room that has nothing in it. Penetrating to the very heart of the mystery brings us to ourselves, an empty space. Such an encounter with the invisible and the intangible, the ineffable, if you like, is why the city exists. Whatever you see here is not really what's going on. The second reading is from Surat Yunus, or the chapter of Jonah in the Holy Quran. Moses said, "My people, if you," and this is, of course, a translation from the Arabic. Moses said, "My people, if you have faith in God and are devoted to him, put your trust in him." They said, "We have put our trust in God, Lord. Do not make us an object of persecution for the oppressors. Save us in your mercy from those who reject your message." We revealed to Moses and his brother, "House your people in Egypt and make these houses of worship. Keep up with the prayer. Give good news to the believers." And Moses said, "Our Lord, you have given Pharaoh and his chiefs splendor and wealth in this present life, and here they are, Lord, leading others astray from your path. Our Lord, obliterate their wealth and harden their hearts, so they do not believe until they see the agonizing torment." God said, "Your prayers are answered, so stay on the right course, and do not follow the path of those who do not know." We took the children of Israel across the sea. Pharaoh and his troops pursued them in arrogance and aggression. But as he was drowning, he cried, "I believe there is no God except the one the children of Israel believe in. I submit to him." Now, when you had always been a rebel and a troublemaker, today we shall save our only corpse as a sign to all posterity. We shall save only your corpse as a sign to all posterity. A great many people failed to heed our signs. We settled the children of Israel in a good place and provided good things as sustenance for them. It was only after knowledge had come to them that they began to differ among themselves. Your Lord will judge between them on the day of resurrection regarding their differences. And now in our teal hymnal, our reflection hymn is number 1032, Daouna Naish. So this is in Arabic. There's a translation in the bottom, but so you have an idea of what the words are. It is Daouna Naish bisalam, Daouna Naish bi'aman, Daouna nansij ahlam, Daouna namut bisalam. So how do we want to approach this?
I'd say Tycho will play it through once and then we'll sing it through twice.
Great. Pretty good. Now it is my pleasure to invite Dr. Graham Pitts onto the pulpit.
I appreciate y'all having me here today, especially to my friend James for the invitation. Jan and Tycho spent time this week working on the arrangement of Did My Lord Deliver Daniel, and I really appreciate that. That's a hymn that speaks to me from the time of struggle here in the South.
Excuse me, would you mind adjusting the...
Oh, no, ma'am. Absolutely. How's that?
Thank you.
Let me know. Let me know if anything's on fire up here. Here we go. How about that? Okay. I move around a little bit too, so just give me the sign. Sarah, my wife Sarah and I just moved here to Oxford, and we hope to find community among your congregation. We met initially at Quaker Meeting in Lebanon at the Brumana Friends School, where she was teaching high school. Currently, we're members of Temple Israel in Memphis, and before that, we went to a Presbyterian church in Washington, D.C. So you see this ecumenical framework that you have suits our family best. For reasons that will become clear as I talk, I think the strictures of narrow doctrine, the worldviews that follow from it, also suit our human family the best. I know that I am preaching to the converted here at the Unitarian Universalist Church. And so, the city of Jerusalem, thank you, I found my place. The city of Jerusalem is the lightning rod for global conflict. Could there be a more decisive sign of this spectacular failure of institutionalized religion to fulfill God's mission? While the processes that have shaped the war that's happening in Palestine are modern, far, far from ancient, religious symbology gives the conflict its overt form. It is not fundamentally about religion, it is very much about religion. The Palestinian offensive on October 7, 2023 was called Al-Aqsa Flood, a reference to Islam's holy sites in Jerusalem. When Hezbollah announces its martyrs, the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah, they say that they died, quote, on the road to Jerusalem. Israel named its latest operation in Gaza City Gideon's Chariots, Hamas's counteroffensive, Moses' staff. One of the many tragedies here is that a shared faith has become the pretext for slaughter. Hamas began its suicide bombing campaign only after a doctor from Brooklyn, a Jewish settler in the West Bank, murdered 29 Palestinian men and boys at prayer in the city of Hebron. This, among other things, was an act of desecration of the tomb of the patriarchs, the Ibrahimi Mosque, as Palestinians know it, a shared site of worship for Muslims and Jews that houses the tombs of Abraham, Sarah, Rebekah, Leah, Isaac, and Jacob. U.S. support for Israel, as was the British Empire's, finds a justification in a particular reading of the Bible that Jews gathering in the Holy Land in Jerusalem represents the fulfillment of Christian Testament, of the Christian Testament. In the 19th century as now, this is a very anti-Semitic idea that Jewish people are foreigners anywhere but Israel. Conversely, it reserves Jerusalem, literal and metaphorical, for a narrow swath of humanity. Today we'll make the case that this conceit does violence to the meanings of God's word and Moses' promise to deliver God's children from oppression. The Holy Scriptures of the three religions contain a single powerful revelation that was, from the moment of its recording, filtered for parochial worldly aims. That dissonance is not hard to see once we decide to look for it. I will focus on Islam's place amongst the Abrahamic traditions to make the case that these truths have always been hiding in plain sight. The Muslim tradition, most non-Muslims with any background in the matter will know this, is that the Quran was revealed in a very remote place, Mecca. It aimed converting the polytheistic inhabitants of that region to monotheism. Earlier we heard a passage from the Holy Quran narrating a story that you already knew. This is the irony. It's clear in the messages revealed to the prophet through the angel Gabriel that the audience is familiar with the prophetic tradition of Abraham, of the people of Israel. It is a great error, in my opinion, out of sympathy with Islam and an aversion to bigotry against Muslims and indeed imperialism, to treat Islam as different. The history of the Middle East somehow adheres to a different set of historical rules. These noble motivations, combating Islamophobia, can unwittingly reproduce the racist framework that they aim to critique, namely, in a reluctance to subject the so-called tradition to scrutiny, an enormous opportunity is missed to fully welcome Islam within the Abrahamic tradition where it belongs. Our scripture passage indicates this truth that we are supposed to deny. The Quran tells the story of the people of Israel, identifies with its prophets, makes an invitation to Jerusalem and Zion's promised land open to all who heeds God's message. Pharaoh, in the passage that James read, tries to convert at the last moment as he's drowning in the sea. He says, I accept the God of Israel and Abraham. And then it says, I am among the righteous. The original Arabic is Ana min al-Muslimin. I am a Muslim. It's never translated like that. Just like the word for God is always rendered in English as Allah. This is like the key way that Islam is distanced from the other Abrahamic faiths. So what are we to make of Pharaoh's conversion to Islam at his death? The word Muslim at that juncture means something much more general than it means now. It means monotheist, it means follower of God. A few hundred years after the life of the prophet, Muslim scholars established a set of orthodoxies that began to distance their faith from its origins of universalist monotheism. Critical piece of evidence for this is the story of Abraham's would-be sacrifice. Most people familiar with this story and its different variants would tell you that. Which son of Abraham do Muslims believe was to be sacrificed? What Well, you got it right, but you were supposed to trap though. You were supposed to say Ishmael. There's a debate among this. So there's still scholarly debate above this. A lot of people would tell you that they understand the consensus to be Ishmael. So in the point of that story is that like the fork in the road happens at the inception of the prophetic tradition and not much, much later. But the Quran is not ambiguous on this point. God was told to sacrifice, and I quote, "He about whom good news was given," an unambiguous reference to Isaac, not Ishmael. Sarah was not of childbearing age. It was her son, not Hagar's, who was a special blessing from God. Another indication of the Islamic revelation's inseparability from other Abrahamic traditions is the centrality of Jerusalem. The first contemporary sources we have, historical sources, that reference the Prophet Muhammad, come from 634, 2 years after his passing. They refer to, quote, the Arabs of Muhammad engaging in battle in what is now Gaza. Egyptian sources from a few years later put the Caliph Omar, the successor of the Prophet, in Jerusalem, where we are to understand that he led the community of believers who did not yet refer to themselves as Muslims, instead muhajirun, or immigrants, referencing the flight of the Prophet and his followers to Al-Madinah. By the end of the 7th century, the Dome of the Rock staked Islam's claim to represent the Abrahamic tradition with a glittering structure that displayed then as now the oldest physical copy of the Quran possessed by humans, etched onto its walls. Those passages contain Islam's polemic against Christian Trinitarian belief. The question, what is the Dome of the Rock, and why is it different than almost any sacred Islamic architecture, is answered by the tradition that the Umayyad dynasty had strayed from orthodoxy. If we apply Occam's razor here, I think we'll find that the orthodoxy had not yet coalesced. When we consider how the Quran embraces the prophetic tradition, the centrality of Jerusalem to early Muslims comes as no great surprise. It represented the promised land and matches the landscape of hills covered in olive trees described in the Quran, whereas Mecca does not. European scholars of Islam, Orientalists, to the extent that they considered these realities, generally used them to discredit Islam as some kind of fraudulent deformation of Judaism that twisted the stories of the Bible. Most non-Muslims sympathetic to Islam have embraced the Muslim tradition and its answers to these questions instead. This lost history, for me, suggests that the distancing of Islam happened in accordance with worldly agendas in the Muslim world and beyond. For their part, the Islamic scholarly establishment that coalesces in Baghdad in the 9th and 10th century began to decisively subordinate the stories of the people of Israel, Israeliyat, to other traditions. This is when most Muslims came to identify Ishmael and not Isaac as the son to be sacrificed, Mecca over Jerusalem, and Muhammad's confrontation with the Jewish population of Medina rather than his embrace of a shared monotheism. This is not to suggest that exchange between Jews and Muslims ended then. For instance, the story of Daniel is not in the Quran, but enters the Muslim tradition later. So it's clear that there's an exchange between Jewish and Muslim scholars across time. And I should flag here that in 1900, 1 in 4 inhabitants of the city of Baghdad were Jewish. Cairo is a very Jewish city. Alexandria is a very Jewish city. So more than a millennium of coexistence collapses very quickly in the modern period. It's not a story we fully have time for today. A conservative consensus foreclosed this rich Islamic tradition of allegorical and exegetical interpretations of the Quran in favor of a literalist consensus. Of course, there was and has been, remains dissent, but the Islam that we know today in general discourages these kinds of readings that center the story of the people of Israel in the tradition. Far from particular to Islam, this growing chasm between the original universal prophetic message and the institutional reality of a doctrine that asserted the supremacy of one revelation characterizes the history of Christianity as well. I do not need to explain that to this audience. There are two levels to Scripture, the parochial filter and the divine inspiration of the prophetic tradition. There's always that glimmer of God's vision mediated by the narrow concerns of time and place, then appropriated by those in power, and those who resisted kind of a dance between Pharaoh and Moses that happens internal to the system of each of these three faiths. I'll conclude with the suggestion that the underlying message is always barely hidden. Years ago, I was hiking in Lebanon's Kadisha Valley, the cradle of Maronite Christianity, where monasteries established in a series of caves shielded monks, hermits, and nuns from Byzantine oppression. I arrived at the cave of Hawa after losing my way for a couple hours on goat paths. There I found a Catholic priest from Colombia who had applied to the Pope to live the life of a hermit and been accepted, which meant he ate once a day, never sharing meals with anybody. Spent his time praying. I felt lucky that he was willing to point me the right way and to have a chat. Earlier in the day, I hitched a ride with a Maronite priest and his sister, a math teacher in Missouri. They were going to a convent where nuns with PhDs from the Sorbonne lived in a rustic structure built into the caves. They invited me to worship and take communion with them, even though that I told them I am not a Catholic. When I told the hermit, I was surprised that they invited a Protestant to their mass. He said quite simply, "Do you think it was God that made these differences between us?" That simple, universal truth, uttered by somebody so completely ensconced in parochial institutions, opened my eyes to the potential it has to guide us towards Zion, to a Jerusalem built for all God's people. This does not need to be very complicated. Our shared revelations offer us a North Star: resist Pharaoh, follow Moses and Miriam, struggle for the promised land, with the knowledge that it may not be us who makes it there, that we may only ever catch a glimpse of Zion's glory. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. As we extinguish this chalice flame, may the warmth of its light remain with us, guiding our steps and our hearts. Let us carry forward the strength of this community, the courage to speak truth, and the hope that transformation is possible. In each breath we take, may we remember that the work of love, justice, and healing is ours to continue, both here and beyond these walls. Our closing hymn is number 318, We Would Be One. And please remain standing after for our congregational blessing.
I think we know this one pretty well, so we'll do, what do you think, the last two bars, you want to do 3?
4.
Remain standing, and we can join hands for our congregational blessing. The words are: go in peace, believe in peace, create peace, and be peace. Go in peace.